Very honored to be here today, speaking at the inaugural edition of AfroTalks. It's quite exciting to see that young Africans are taking things into their own hands, and then we are not waiting for our governments to make all this possible for us. One of the key things that I've been doing for the past 3 years is working and engaging people on why a borderless Africa is possible. Well, a bit of introduction. My name is Prince Akpah. I'm the Pan-African Solidarity and Mobilization Lead at Africans Rising, which is a movement of movements and people across the entire continent. And we are hoping that through our little efforts, we can be able to create the Africa that we all desire. So my topic is on a borderless Africa. This is a picture that I created using AI, and it's a true depiction of how the borders on the African continent were created. So we all know about the slave trade, and when the Europeans or the trade masters were trying to transition by ending slave trade, they decided to sit together at a conference in Germany where they divided the continent amongst themselves. Now, at this conference, there was no representative from us, which means there was no African on this table, and none of us had a say in how the continent would be divided or not. So I pretty much grew up on the Aflao border. In my house, you can make a call using the Togo network or the Ghana network. But the interesting thing is, even if I take my Ghana card and I go to the Aflao border and want to cross into Togo, the border officers will stop me and ask me more questions, even though I speak the same language. Now, this is my story, and I'm sure it's something that we can relate to a lot of people across the continent. So whilst this was done, they didn't just divide the continent because of their mineral resources that they can get or the various things that they were looking for. They were dividing the people that had no borders. So for over 150 years on, you and I are suffering from something that people created in the year 1885. And that was the first time that African countries became a reality. And today we have people that speak French, people that speak Portuguese, people that speak English. Even though we call ourselves Africans, in reality, the unity is not there. Because today, if I want to travel from here and go to Angola, I need to go and sit at the embassy, fill lots of form, even though I have done a lot of things for myself, but I need to prove that as I am going to Angola, I will come back. Meanwhile, I am just visiting the same continent on which I am. So how did this campaign start? In the year 2022, we tried to organize a conference. And at this conference, we wanted to have at least one African country represented. And we chose the country Tanzania. It didn't dawn on us that we were going to have a lot of challenges bringing people from all over the continent into a country. But the reality set in when we started applying for visa or trying to see how best we can get people into the country. And we realized that with the US visa or with the US passports, you can actually travel into Tanzania and just get your passport stamped. Whereas if you are a Nigerian, you would have to apply for a passport 30 days ahead before you can be granted access to go to Tanzania. So in case you have a medical emergency that you need to go tomorrow, unless you have somebody connected in power, it's absolutely impossible. Even though we had the majority of registered participants from Nigeria, in actual sense, only about 2 of them were able to make it to Tanzania for this important conference. So at this conference, we sat down and said, no, this is an important thing that we need to take up. This is something that is happening to every ordinary person that would like to wake up one day and even travel across the entire continent. So we created the 2022 Kilimanjaro Declaration, which is an advanced version of what was created 5 years earlier in Arusha. And since then, Africans Rising has taken up the responsibility of being an advocate on why a borderless Africa is needed on this African continent. This is the continent that we want. A continent that has no borders, a continent that has one currency. Currently on the continent, we have 41 currencies, which means that if I have my Ghana cedis and I want to go to my neighboring country, Togo, or maybe our Burkina Faso, there's absolutely no way I will be able to spend the Ghana cedis. It happened to me in 2019 when I went to Rwanda. In fact, I had no idea this was going to happen to me. I went to the ATM, withdrew a lot of money because I was traveling to Rwanda. I was very excited I was going to the great Rwanda. Only for me to arrive at the airport in Rwanda and realize that I can't exchange my Ghana cedis at their Forex Bureau. So in actual sense, the currency that you and I value in Ghana is totally useless in any other country on the continent, which means you cannot even change it into other currencies. Luckily for me, I had a Visa card, so that was what saved me. So my first night of my hotel, a fellow Ghanaian had to pay for me before I was able to sleep. Imagine if I didn't have a Visa card, I would have fallen into a lot of trouble. Maybe I'll become a homeless person in Rwanda just because of our currency. Of course, there are other things. We're talking about security. How do we have an integrated army or security infrastructure across the continent? It's something that we want in the Borderless Africa, where if there is an activity happening in Angola or Cote d'Ivoire, we know that we have an integrated army across the continent. We are looking for one central government. I know today we all have the African Union that we talk about, but in reality, how many of you have felt the actions of the African Union in your pockets, in your lives, or in your education? I think we need to rethink how that is done. But in essence, the continent is rich. And if we remove the borders, then it means that its citizens will be able to benefit so much from it. Let me share this story. This is something I also created with artificial intelligence. So mind me if the second picture, you see the person is out of the bus. It's because maybe I didn't input my prompt very well. So this is the stories of 3 Nigerians. For a Nigerian to travel across the continent, you need almost about $3,000 just for visas. For you to be able to travel to all the 54 countries on the continent, you need to have at least $3,000 dedicated to applying and processing your visa. Now, these 3 Nigerians, one is traveling from London to Lagos, and she had a smooth ride. Do you know the reason? She had a UK passport. So she didn't have to face any visa challenges on the various borders. Then we talk about Ileri, who is using the bus. She is trying to break a Guinness World Record of traveling across the African continent by using public transport. I can tell you that his dream is in limbo because, of course, the visa restrictions across the continent is making it impossible for him to achieve that in the record time that as he wants, because in his country, some of the country's embassies or even places that you can get visas are not available, and as if they don't care, so they will not be able to do that for him. Then the third person is a biker who is trying to bike across the entire continent. Did all the trips from Kenya to Nigeria, from Nigeria trying to go to Morocco, and her dream is cut short because she can't access a visa through Mauritania. These are the problems that we are facing on the continent. And the truth is, today it might be the story of someone else that we might be talking about until it becomes your problem. It might be something that you want to go and do in a country that you love so much or you read about so much. But the reality is, when the visa challenges come, you face it. And that's my story. These are 2 nice pictures I took. The one on the left is me in South Africa, and the one on the right is me in Morocco. At the time, South Africa had visas in Ghana. So you have to sit down, fill all the forms, and go and submit it to a private company. I felt so uncomfortable that a private company could have my passport and everything. What would they use to do with it? I don't know. The second one was Morocco, and that was the most daunting time. And that was when I realized that the campaign we are fighting for, if we don't take it serious, it will affect someone one day, and then we might not even have the opportunity to sympathize with the person. I was invited to an event and I had to apply for Moroccan visa. I did all my paperwork, and then they said I have to get an insurance. So I went to the insurance company, and they closed at 10 a.m. That's when the embassy closes. I went to the insurance company, was able to get the insurance only to come and submit around 9 something. And they told me that there is an information on the insurance that is wrong. So I have to go back to the insurance company and correct it. And I was telling the agent officer that By the time I come back, it will be past 10. He assured me perfectly that when I come back, just tell the security. When I came back, it was around 10:02, and they locked the gate on me. So no matter where I've traveled from to come for that interview, no matter where I have come from, I have to go back and return the following day. These are the problems that we are facing across the entire continent. And I'm not going to Europe. I'm not going to America. I'm not going to Asia. I'm just traveling on the same continent that we all call Africa. So this is the problem we are facing. And today it might be my problem. It might be Hilary. It might be someone. But I'm thinking, how about if it falls on you? So that is why we need to come together and advocate for this. Why does this campaign matter to Africans Rising? A lot of people have been asking, why do we want to carry this on our head, even though we know how impossible it is? Because we have 54 governments on the continent. Where are we going to have them all come together to agree on this? It's true. We have the African Union Protocol on free movement of people on the continent. But as at now, only 4 countries have ratified it. 33 countries have signed to it. But before the African Union can implement it, we need 15 African countries. We need 15 African countries. And that's at this moment, we have only 4 of them. And I'll tell you in the later slides what Africans Rising has been doing. But why this campaign matters is because the continent will experience economic growth. Recently, I went back home. My phone got spoiled. And I had to either leave my village to come to Accra to fix it, or I could have just gone to Lomé to fix it. So as the Aflao boy I am, I used one of the borders to go into Togo, and I was able to repair my phone and do business over there and pay them in their currency. That is what economic growth in Lomé, just because I'm able to travel easily from Ghana to Togo, even though I use a second border. Cross-border collaborations. We have people in Ghana that want to travel to other countries to collaborate, but because of visa restrictions, they are unable to do that. We want to improve on our intra-Africa tourism. We've seen a lot of beautiful places on the continent in Zambia and Zimbabwe that we want to visit. But unfortunately, we have to apply for visas before we can see what God has done for our continent. Our Pan-African identity is at stake. How do I call myself a Pan-African when I can't even access my own continent? How do I call myself a Pan-African when someone with an American passport or a German passport has more access to the continent more than me? There will be endless possibilities. Believe me. If we are able to open the borders across the continent, I heard people saying, oh, how about security, how about this and that? But the problem is the opportunities for people to think and innovate, even on how to even solve our problems, is something that we have to look at. And that is what has made Asia, that's what has made America, where people have problems and they're able to sit down and try to create things that can solve them. So I believe that if we are able to open the entire continent to ourselves, get our African governments to sign this protocol, I'm telling you that the West, the East, whoever cannot match what the continent has to offer this world. So what has Africans Rising been? Since 2022, we've been engaging in a lot of activities, either from campaigns and other things. And this week alone, we've marked it as Africa Liberation Week, where we are commemorating what Kwame Nkrumah and others did 62 years ago. And we have been able to organize over 900 activities within this week alone, which is also ending tomorrow on the 25th. So beyond that, we have a petition where we have volunteers going around getting people to sign them. And we have very dedicated volunteers who go all their lengths with no payments, getting signatures for us to be able to go and convince their various governments on why Borderless Africa is possible. This is critical or a nice illustration. This is a football match that I organized between Ghana and Togo. And we played this match just right at the border. So the players from Togo just crossed the border by walking. They didn't have to take cars, they didn't have to take flights. And this was something that we did to show how united we can be as Africans. This is me participating in a match in Zambia last year. You can see how enthusiastic the young people are that Borderless Africa is needed, because one day they might also need a visa to go somewhere, or their children, their grandchildren. But I believe that with our effort, we can be able to do something that can cause a change. We have a lot of volunteers organizing these activities and engagements with people. So, why I think our advocacy matters. 2 years, there was an event called the Nkrumah Mandela Leadership Conference, and I had a opportunity to speak when the South African ambassador was there, and it was on the same topic. And interestingly, a month later, Ghana and the South African visa waiver was announced. So it means that our advocacy can work when we are able to talk to the right people and engage them to see the real problem that these things are creating for our continent. So why this matters? Our future is at stake. And I've mentioned a lot of times that we are doing this thing, even if not for ourselves, for our children and our grandchildren. There have been a lot of opportunities that have been locked out. We are crying for innovators. But I believe that if somebody in Ghana can easily access Zambia, they can be able to solve some of their problems. We have a lot of technologies in Ghana here that are difficult to implement in other parts of the continent simply because we don't have access to it. And I believe that with all these 54 countries we have, if we all bring our heads together, most of the problems and challenges that we face, we can be able to address them because the challenges are the same everywhere, and everywhere solutions are being created. So I believe that even our solutions can become borderless if we are able to open the border for people. And I've mentioned that the idea or identity of a Pan-African unity is challenged every time an African has to access a visa before they cross a border on this continent. I can call myself a Pan-African, where I have to sit down and fill long forms, stand in queues, just because I want to visit an African country. So what can you do? We want you to join us. I'm sure you've been inspired by the actions that we've taken so far. We have a petition on our website. We'd like you to sign it. We want you to advance this conversation to the policy level. If you are having a conversation with someone influential in power, your foreign affairs minister, I think this is something that you can also bring up to them. Raise awareness online and offline. Let people be aware that the opportunities that we have on the continent should be borderless, and we can be able to access all those things when we are able to create a future for ourselves now through a borderless continent. So I've always questioned this, the AFCT. I've seen a lot of people champion it, a lot of people praise it. But my simple question is, we have free trade, but not free people. We have free trade, but not free people. The question is, why allow the movement of goods, but not the people who trade them? How are we ever going to achieve having an AFCT where trade is booming across the continent, where the people that are supposed to drive the car, the people that are supposed to engage in the trade, they themselves have to sit down and apply for visas where they can travel across the continent? Thank you very much.